on Wine rights, adding the word objectively.
Yeah,
In
right,
front
reasonable expectation. So who has an objectively reasonable expectation? Just to signify to everybody
Okay.
involved that
Okay. Yeah, we're good.
we would sign off on that. On the other one, the faculty offices. So we still come back to the wanting the language about available campus space. We had a lively discussion about that, which we thought we I think the extenuating circumstances are narrow for what we're trying to accomplish. So let me give you the scenario we were kicking around, and maybe there's some other language that you can come up with. But, Spring Hill, right? Spring Hill already is pretty tight with space, is my understanding. So we anticipate that at some point in the future, maybe even near future, we wouldn't be able to commit to having everybody with their own office if it grows more. And obviously, we don't have funds to just build in a given time. So we may need to get creative on how we do that, whether a shared office or otherwise. So things like that, we're trying to determine how best to handle it. And it could happen at other campuses as well. We've moved out some, I think part of St. Leo had some facility there, as I understand it. So what we want to try and avoid is to commit to something we can't do, or end up with in a dispute and the union takes position, well, you could kick out some administrators or things of that nature. We don't want to do that either.
So would that not fit this situation?
I'm kind of viewing it as a little too narrow. Why wouldn't available space do it? So if we commit that, we'll give it to you if there's availability, does the same thing. And we're a little uncomfortable with extenuating, just seems like a pretty high bar. Available may seem like too low a bar, and we're trying to figure out some other phrasing for that.
Can we
If it's not
discuss?
possible, it's because it's not available. It's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
They might not agree to available.
It's not available, right.
Right, and that's what, we just want to be straightforward with the language because, invariably, we're going to continue to focus on hiring more faculty, right?
Which is great, we love to hear that.
Right, it's important that as the college grows and programs grow, that every budget process, we bring forward new faculty hires. So, again, dependent on fiscal capability. But because of the expansion of the institution and the finite number of spaces, the decision will invariably be made that we're not going to be able to accommodate an exclusive space for all faculty. So that's just the concern right there. And right now, again, we've already done this for the past several years. To Brian's point, we have university partners. We've removed the university partners. Those were revenue generating. Our priority is the faculty, obviously, making sure they have a space. So where they once were, now a faculty occupies that. So we've made every effort to exhaust reasonable options, but there's going to come that point where we just don't have the space. So we have to have other capabilities to be able to look at other options, right? So shared space.
Can we talk about those other options as this event occurs? I mean, obviously, I heard Brian mention shared offices as one. I don't know how large the offices are.
Not very.
So,
No, they're SREP standards.
They are. They're standard size.
well,
standard
yeah,
size
yeah,
offices.
no, we're not
Yeah.
questioning that. The concern is that if you have office hours, you need to have some place to perform those office hours.
Private.
And, it's going to take a good bit of proper scheduling if people are going to share offices to have a limited amount of time where they're both in there at the same time, where you have some privacy in those meetings with your own students. But I know you can't promise it in a contract, but what are some of the things you might look into doing, even though you have to do that in an emergency situation, but what would you do to, as quickly as possible, remedy that scenario that you have to share offices or some other type of relationship? What do you see as a contingency plan to get back to normal, if you will?
I have no idea. I mean, what would you, if you you're talking about, if we end up in a situation where we had to hire more faculty, we don't have it, what would be the
Yeah, I
long-term,
mean,
how
what would be
handle that?
game plan for us accomplishing that issue?
Well, again, the college has, in certain areas, we've actually transformed, in one location, it was an adjunct space. That adjunct space was transformed into a faculty office. So we're looking at that, but that also is shared, right? So the BSN faculty have a shared space with the assistant and the director of the BSN program, who's a full-time faculty member. So we've done some of those options. The other option is, again, looking at sharing existing space. It might be a situation where the college may identify one region where it might be a cubicle type of an environment, similar to our other staff. We just don't know. I can't tell you right now what we would do, but even that would be, there would be a budget situation. We'd have to see how, what is the current space being used as, and what adverse impact would it provide to the college operations if we were to say, we'll take one region and make it a faculty unit. It's just premature to be able to speculate.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what we've done in the past.
Fair enough. Our team, I think, what's your reaction, I guess, on the bathroom scenario?
Yeah, that was another area that you bring up, Marshall. We would stick to our proposal to strike through that after that first sentence of subsection C. And let's, I think it maybe could have a fruitful discussion about that, because we hear what your concerns are, and let us tell you what our concerns are. We try to crystallize that a little bit more. So my understanding, current practice is the issue for us is not so much the bathroom, but more the unfettered access after hours, that some have access because you're on an external office and you have a key, you can open it whenever. But the same is not true of all campuses and all places. So we have a concern, how would we give access to all faculty members for offices that are not already available after hours?
You mean there are buildings on campuses where if a faculty wanted to go to their office on a Saturday or even a Sunday, they can't get in the building to their office? Is there a situation like that?
That's my understanding. Is that true?
Is that true?
Well, we have
I
buildings
thought
on
they
the
had a
campus.
key or a card or something to allow them to do
Right,
that.
and not all buildings have cards.
Okay.
Right, and not all buildings have external access. So in some cases, that is the case, and it's a faculty approval by the provost when the provost knows that faculty member has the inclination to come on a particular time. So yes,
Yes, there are faculty who do not have access to their
we don't have
office on.
truly unfettered access of all faculty to every office.
Okay, all right. I did not know that. I did not know that. I thought everybody had access pretty much, well, not 24/7, but if they needed to go there, I didn't know that.
Looking at our second sentence and with that understanding, it still behooves, I think, the college and the faculty to have some way of accessing that in time of need. And the second sentence basically does that. If access is needed, the faculty member will be granted access within a reasonable time by contacting the appropriate campus security office. Is campus security a 24/7 situation?
They don't have access to those buildings either. So they don't have the security. You guys, correct me if I'm wrong, don't have the keys either. Security doesn't.
Correct.
After the hours. Now, maybe,
Would the appropriate administrator be a more,
But we don't have administrators on the weekends.
well,
and
but it
after
says
hours.
within a reasonable time. In other words, if I know Friday, I want to come in on Sunday, if I make arrangements with my supervisor, I'm not going to say how that would be carried out. I mean, some supervisor would be more than willing to give the faculty member a key, or some would prefer to meet them there. But is that a possibility? This sentence envisions the ability to do this because it's functionally required for them to do their job.
yeah.
So
I think
that's what
we
this is-
want,
That's what this is about.
something along the lines, that's why we want to have a conversation of if there is a need.
Right.
And make the request, and we can I think we would stop short of saying we're definitely going to agree to it on, unfettered access. But yeah, if you make the request to the administrator and we can make the arrangements, we would make arrangements for it. And depending on what the need is and that kind of thing. That's the way it pretty much is now, right?
But if we gave security a key or a card, which surely they must be trusted with such things, right? Or they wouldn't be
We
security.
don't
You
give
want to trust them?
security internal access. That's
No.
why they're external, the periphery. They're not employees. So
Okay.
I do want to make a point that although we've talked about it several times and used the word unfettered, our sentence doesn't talk about unfettered access.
No, it just says access, but.
Yeah, right. And with it, by going through
Unimpeded.
certain procedures. And now that we understand the campus security can't provide the procedural way to do it, how can we develop the procedural way to do it that will work for administration and for faculty?
Well, and that's why we're throwing it out there, because I don't think there's a big divide between what you're wanting and what we're willing to do, is how to make that work logistically. I mean, 5-10 years down the road, I assume the hope is we'll have kind of key card access and with security built in and all that, but that's $1 million kind of investment. And I guess we have that at the Porter campus somewhat already, but until we get to that point, how do we accomplish this goal? For right or wrong, security doesn't have that access right now, and they're the only ones that would be there 24/7, right?
Are we opposed to the suggestion that was made by Julie earlier in terms of just those particular areas with having a key for explicit
bathroom.
faculty to access the bathroom when they're there? I mean, that's a very low cost, low procedure thing that we can take care of. And that's remedial.
Right, and that's what we're trying to figure out, how to do that logistically. So those of you that already have that, because you have the external access, how to open up the bathrooms there. And we still had concerns of how we go about doing that, I guess. Who has the keys to those?
Right, so we'll need a little bit more time, certainly beyond the scope of today's meeting, to identify that. In principle, we're not opposed to the principle, but fundamentally, though, there are concerns about what we consider after hours, the reasonableness of that, some limitations on that, or there are concerns about safety. I know faculty are concerned about safety. You're out there alone, you're in an office alone, you're in a hallway corridor alone, you're in the bathroom alone. There's not that much traffic, so that does pose other issues from a concern administratively about people being on campus after the normal operating hours. We realize it's necessary sometimes. Administrators do it as well, but we just want to make sure that that's also discussed. That we're aware from a reasonableness perspective.
You don't want anybody there at midnight.
Correct.
1 o'clock in the morning, but reasonable hours,
Right.
like say between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on a Saturday or a Sunday, which is daylight and people or whatever. I understand what you're saying, but
If
I
we
don't.
had more timeframes, would that help?
Let's keep working on it. I think
we'll get a dialogue.
it sounds like there's a commitment
Sure.
to get to the goal line on this. So, let's keep working on it. I don't think we're that far apart on this. And then I think the A and B, I think, is pretty much resolved. I would think that my team agree kind of we can live with that language with a commitment that everyone's going to, if it happens, it's going to be something we can work together with to try to solve about the lack of an office for a period of time. Yeah, but I think we're close. We'll work on some language there too. But you guys probably have the silver bullet on that one. But we can certainly come up with some ideas. But, it's just reasonable access at times where important work is done. I'm sure most people, when they're on the weekend, don't really want to go to work, but sometimes you have to. So we all
should be
are in
commending these faculty who work.
we're all in
despite
that.
the fact They're not obligated to work.
Right.
Just as an example, sometimes the lab setup is one very specific thing, but for instance, this weekend, we're considering new biology books. I have 6 very large textbooks that I threw into a cart and dragged home, but it would be easier if I came on Saturday from 10 to 2 and looked at them. There's it really stops us from being able to do a thorough job, and it's kind of intermittent. It's not like a regular thing that you can say this is always going to happen. But because of the nature of, our class times and what has to be done during the week, there was no room to fit in my textbook review, and so those kind of things will, without having access, it really kind of scares me to be there 6 hours and not be able to have a restroom. It's that simple. So I'm sure we'll come up with something, but.
Yeah, we're not far off here, so. I guess it's our turn now. On faculty work week, we still have some significant concerns, especially with the new sentence that you added, with online instructors and in, face-to-face instruction and all the differences that entail having a provision that the college can reserve the right just doesn't seem to be equitable. We don't know if there's something that will be equitable or not, but we'll keep looking at that idea, and hopefully you will as well. And I think it's fair to say that I don't think we have any members of the team that are post-secondary adult or technical faculty members. So we are a little bit unsure of what their conditions currently are. Are these the current conditions of those personnel?
Yes, they're full-time faculty members.
Yeah, I know, I realize that, but
Sure.
I mean, are the hours mentioned here the current?
That's the current expectation.
Okay. We didn't even know that, so that's helpful, and we will,
Sure.
that way we can have some conversations with those folks to
Sure.
see if there's, they might have a better way of doing it or thinking about this. But I can tell you up front, the all duty days is very problematic. Primarily because some people teach much of their load in several days as opposed to spreading it out in equal bunches of days. So it just seems like it's very difficult to say that you reserve the right, and it could mean one or it could mean all faculty members to be physically present. So that's something we want to think about a lot more. Ask you to think about it as well. We think the first sentence basically gets to, the work week's 30 hours per week and 5 consecutive days. And, the amount of time you're going to be on campus in some ways is dependent upon how many classes you teach on campus, as opposed to do you teach online campuses, or courses or not. So we are committed, I think, as a team to be on campus as much as possible. I think we've had that discussion. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. It's just, how do we do that in a system where there are multiple kind of employees? They do some part half and half, some almost all online, some all in face. The standards are different. We talked about a person that might have and hopefully this won't happen, but if a person has an 8 o'clock class and then has a night class the same day, and they live 30 miles away, they may want to spend all their day on campus that day. They may not want, except for maybe to go to lunch. But, so there's so many different permutations of this. It's hard to say we're going to live by one sentence. So just ask you to be a little more flexible in looking at this, and we will be as well. But we just can't get there today.
I think we understand that, and we continue to look at that as well.
Okay.
Where does that leave us on the other 9.4, was it, I think, office hours? Is that something we're still okay to TA today, or?
Yeah, I think, and I think we're in agreement also on Weingarten.
Yeah, I
14.
think we can sign those two then.
Yeah.
We're still on 12, we're gonna have to come back. I had some ideas for things for the next time as well, and we do want to talk a little bit about schedule.
We are agreeable to signing MOU for the family
Oh,
leave.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot that. Yeah.
None of us are opposed to it.
and we discussed that amongst ourselves, so we'll endeavor to make sure we try and bring that stuff up as we see those things coming up. And I'll put together maybe some language for next time or send it to you.
Yeah.
Mark and Emily. I think that could be
Yeah,
pretty short
we
and
could,
sweet.
yeah, we could sign off on it.
Thank you.
And with your help, Caitlin, we can fix very quickly the wine garden section for signature and then, do you have the final wording on the office hours there, Ryan? I'll let you-
If I email it to you, can you print it?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
How does Graham put the signature at the bottom? Is it-
We just have a line for each of us, for the union, for the
Okay.
college, or it doesn't really matter that much though.
I mean, you could do it by the footer. You're
Okay,
probably more
Yeah, usually
proficient
just
than
put it
I
at the bottom.
am.
It's
but-
not a big deal though.
okay,
In fact, it probably doesn't even have to be there. You can sign it and date it, right?
Right.
Okay.
So, Remember, there was a day when you didn't have computers.
there was a day when we didn't have computers, are you serious?
I'm serious.
How did you
Carry a
survive?
typewriter? Portable typewriter?
There you go. This process takes long
I guess I'll tell you how old I am, but I put the first Orange County teacher salary schedule on a Commodore Play computer,
I remember
Nice.
Commodore.
cassette driven.
Yep.
So I had to
IBM's
program it in
handy.
Fortran. So, yeah, it wasn't, the world has changed rapidly.
Are you, where'd you getting the wine garden or are we getting the?
We're doing,
office hours?
we're doing both. We're doing wine garden and the,
Office hours. Nine to the office hours.
yeah, he sent you. the-
Oh, you sent it, okay.
Is that the new?
No, that's not the new one. Is it in your email? I don't want to read your email.
Oh.
You want me to send a clean copy now? I can
Yeah.
do that
It's not.
Yeah, send me,
Yeah, if you have a clean copy
Yeah.
of both, then we'll print it out.
Well,
now. I don't have one of the wine.
I'll do the
Okay, we'll
wine.
wine garden.
I've got the
Okay.
wine garden. I'll do
Okay.
that one. There it is.
Oh, that's one that's not fixed. We had one in here. Let me look for it. I'll get it.
It's the one that's clean,
Clean. Oops,
right?
not that one.
And then you just add the word objectively in it.
Okay. Clean. There we go.
And
Back in.
before reasonable
Objectively reasonable.
and
And
objectively reasonable.
objectively.
Of course, it all didn't get eaten, so
Okay. And put the lines at the bottom.
Okay.
Or they're already there. Just
Yeah,
leave it there. You don't have to
We'll
do
make them
it.
better.
Oh, you want it to look better, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
They're not, it's not the same length
Yeah, I
of
know.
line.
Yeah.
And then they said,
Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna wait on it. There we go.
it's amazing.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, I'm happy now.
Okay. You want to hit print on that one?
I just emailed you the other one.
Okay, file,
Hopefully the battery's still,
print,
it may have turned off automatically.
it should go. And then did
You
you,
might have-
or have you sent it yet?
I just now,
Okay.
5 seconds ago, so.
There we go, Brian Cody.
Oh, I gotta connect this to a power outlet.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately. I
There's
don't
one
think-
right behind you, Marshall.
Huh?
There's one right behind
Yeah,
you.
I need to get my cord out.
Oh, here it goes.
Yes, an extra one.
It's making noise. It's alive.
Shutting down.
Oh, just kidding.
that doesn't reach, there's actually one.
Yeah, we'll just move,
Floor.
we move the chair over.
10 a.m. We'll talk to Dr. Beard.
Let's put offenders or SLSQ classes.
Where is this, in New York or here? Where? Oh, it's Nels Trail. Oh, yeah, yeah. I did, but let me, I might have to do that one again.
And make sure it's on the right printer too.
Yeah, I did that. Oh, it says one document waiting, so it should be, it knows it's there, it's waiting.
Okay, you got solid.
Also understand Chiquita's concern as well, which is the back. Whereas
Yeah, right, we need to figure out this
Which one came
future
out?
sessions.
Office hours.
Okay, then we need to do the
I
one.
have to finalize.
We need to print two of them though, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
And I want to tell them what.
But you can print the other one then.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and sign this one while we're waiting.
It needs to be here.